Are you still talking about football?
Yeah, but without NFC North. Now let's talk football.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Headed North, an NFC North podcast, and I'm your host, D-Tron. And oh, what a change a week can make. It's probably Thursday when you're hearing this. Hopefully you're listening on Thursday. And if you are, it's been exactly a week since Thanksgiving and just ahead of one of the biggest late season games that we're going to have in this division. There have been some shakeups in the last 7 days, from key injuries on the Lions side to a very public disaster that led to the Bears making history, Minnesota pressing their luck against Arizona, and Green Bay rolling Miami in the cold. That was all last week. We're also going to dig into this week's slate on Headed North, right after I send you over to my sponsor so they can tell you about their stuff. This episode of Headed North Podcast is sponsored by offrackshop.com. Offrackshop.com is an online thrift retailer that specializes in men and women's clothing, shoes, accessories, and more. So if you haven't already, head to our description. You can find a discount code for your next purchase at offrackshop.com. All right, so last week, 3 of the 4 NFC North teams played on Thanksgiving, and it was one to remember. And I'm not really going to talk about the numbers so much as I am going to talk about these storylines that have come out of the NFC North. So the Lions took on Chicago, and you know by now the fallout from that late game coaching shenanigans going on with Eberflus in Chicago. They are mismanaging late game scenarios, and I mean, as a head coach, that's pretty indefensible. Like, you can't really say anything when you mismanage the clock at the end of the game because you are the head coach. But the cherry on top was his post-game double down, where he claimed that they handled it the right way. Everyone with a TV in America watching football knew you did not handle that the right way, and he seemed to be the only one who believed so. And so he kind of forced Chicago's hand and led the organization to part ways with him. The first time that they have parted ways with a head coach during the season in their history. This is an organization that's like 104 years old. So out goes Eberflus. That experiment is done. And in comes Thomas Brown. Who's Thomas Brown? Well, he's a guy that's been promoted twice in like 3 weeks. He got the offensive coordinator gig after they let go of their offensive coordinator, and now he's the head coach. And if he wins a few games, Ryan Poles better be careful, because he might sneeze, and Thomas Brown is going to have his job in a few weeks. That's just how quickly he's moving up the ladder. And Thomas Brown was quoted saying that he cares about a couple abilities: coachability, accountability, and dependability. Well, how about winnability? You could earn yourself a shot at a head coaching job if you outperform expectations over the next 5 weeks, Thomas. And if not, well, nobody's going to fault you, because Chicago's failures are on Eberflus and the team that he had there. So no one's really thinking that Thomas Brown is going to do a whole lot, but he could do quite a bit for his own head coaching stock, which I'm sure he probably didn't see happening just 4 weeks ago. So it's a win-win for him. And over the next 5 games, they've got 3 of them that are on the road. But the next up is against a very winnable opponent, which you wouldn't have said at the beginning of the year, a sliding 49ers team. They're vulnerable right now, and they present the perfect opportunity for Thomas Brown to get a boost of morale, right? So looking forward to Sunday afternoon in San Francisco. I can't wait to see what he's able to do with a short turnaround with this team that had honestly been over Eberflus probably for the last 3 weeks. But this last week was just too much, and the team began to speak out about it. But before we can get to that Sunday afternoon in San Francisco, we've got to get through Thursday night, where Green Bay and Detroit are going to square off in the Motor City. Green Bay is coming off of a game in Week 13 where they absolutely rolled the Miami Dolphins at night in Lambeau. And as a side note, Miami in cold weather, I thought it was a bit of a gimmick. Everyone always talking about that. Nah, it's legit. They did not look good in cold weather. But Green Bay clearly looked like the superior team in that game. And the Lions are coming off of the aforementioned Detroit-Chicago game where they snuck out of there with a win. much closer than anybody anticipated, but the division has been playing each other closer than the last few years because the teams are getting much better. So Detroit finally got over that Thanksgiving Day hump that's been plaguing them for like the last 7 straight Thanksgivings. And as a Lions fan, it brings me so much joy to watch my team actually win on Thanksgiving. So much joy. But the Lions just went to Lambeau and beat Green Bay on November the 3rd, beat them 24-14. But Detroit is missing some key players for this matchup that they weren't missing then. And I'm going to run down a list of folks because Detroit's list of injured individuals is starting to really grow. You've got early losses of Aiden and Kaminsky and Marcus Davenport, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, Taylor Decker is out, Josh Pascal, Derek Barnes, Mekhi Wingo, and then we also lost Alec Anzalone to an injured forearm, Malcolm Rodriguez, Melifonwu, Ennis Rakeshaw to a hamstring, DJ Reader. The list is going on and on. DJ Reader's got a shoulder injury. Khalif Raymond's got a foot injury. Most of these guys are on IR. It's not looking good. Injuries, right? If there's anything to be worried about with the Lions team moving forward, if you're a Lions fan or just a fan of seeing good football in the NFC North, you should be worried about all of the injuries from the Lions this season and how they're going to try to figure out to get past this everlasting gobstopper of an injury list. Like, it's just so much, and it's coming all at a time where they are still absolutely rolling. And largely because of their core offensive weapons. They're still strong, including a very impressive offensive line, minus Taylor Decker because he's out. The Lions still score points with the best of them. As a matter of fact, they are the best of them. I mean, they're number 1 in points scored coming into Thursday's game. And even with all of the injuries, the defense is still number 2 in the league in points allowed, allowing just over 16 points per game. So I say all that to say, the injuries are going to make this a much tougher task for the Lions against Green Bay. And it also means that there's going to be the potential to shake up the NFC North and the NFC at large when it comes to the playoff picture. Speaking of the playoff picture, did someone forget to tell Minnesota that they're supposed to be losing? Did they possibly forget to tell Sam Darnold that he's not supposed to look so clutch as he leads them down on a final drive against, granted, it's Arizona, but against Arizona last week? They were supposed to be coming into week 14 on a 5-game winning streak. No one saw that coming. Right now, Minnesota is defying all of the non-believers, including myself, because if I could label any team a fraud, I would tell you that it would be Minnesota. But they have proven myself wrong. I don't know about you, though. It's getting ready to set up a really wild end-of-year stretch. This is going to be some really good football in the NFC North. And it just means that all of the games that they play from here on out are going to mean just a little bit more. Right now, Vikings fans are cheering for Green Bay. They want them to win. They want Detroit to lose, spice up that division a little bit more. But there's a task ahead of Minnesota that is more about emotion than skill. Because this week, they're going to be managing all of what happens when you play against the person who used to be your leader. Minnesota is taking on Kirk. And I think they're going to Kirk around and find out that he still has a fire in his belly. And he is going to show them that Atlanta hasn't been on fire. They haven't actually been all that good. They're like 6-6. But it's not because of Kirk. I think he's slinging the ball as he always has. And he's coming into Minnesota, a place where he's thrown a lot of touchdowns. And he is going to have to try to lead Atlanta to a win against a Minnesota team that's going to have some motivation based on what happens on Thursday. They're either going to be searching for a way to creep toward first, or they're going to be trying to keep up with the Detroit Lions so that they don't fall behind for a chance at a late game push at the number 1 overall seed. That also has something to do if Philadelphia Eagles keep winning, but that's a different division. We're not going to talk about them too much. So as it stands right now, Minnesota would be the 5th seed, and they would be slated to take on the number 4 seed, which is Atlanta. In the playoffs, this could very well be a preview of a future matchup. Just depends on what happened on Thursday. And if an open window happens to break for Minnesota where they can sneak into that first place in the North, it could completely change the playoff picture. But this week's game with Minnesota and Atlanta could be a preview of what you'll see again in the playoffs. So speaking of Thursday and the Lions and Packers, let's talk about spreading the field and what you can expect this week. So last week, we had a condensed show because of the holidays. I gave you my picks and blah. I went 33% last week. So recapping, I'll just give you the headline numbers. Currently, through 12 weeks, because I didn't give you anything in week 1, I'm 53.8%. Still better than a coin flip. I've gotten 21 right of 39 picks. Last week, I told you to take the Lions -10 over the Bears. Well, saw how that worked out. They almost lost. Green Bay, I told you to take them over Miami. Take the -3.5. Perfect. They gave Miami all that they wanted and some. And so they won that one easy. And then I told you to take the Vikings over the Cardinals -3.5. And they won by 1 point. And it was actually a pretty exciting win watching Minnesota drive down on that final drive to get the game winner. But it didn't really help you make money, now did it? So hopefully this week is going to be different. But I'll tell you, these picks, some of it I'm working on emotion, some of it is just a feeling. So first and foremost, Thursday night's game, you've got the Lions and the Packers. Lions are a -3. Take the Lions -3, and I'm going to tell you, take them mainly because they're at home. The Bears played them close. They know it. They also know they're going to have to bring their A game because LaFleur is a really good coach, and he's going to game plan well against the Lions. I think the Lions come in and show off some of their offensive prowess. They're going to get the win. I believe it's going to be by more than 3. So I would take the Lions -3 against the Packers this Thursday. Minnesota is a 6-point favorite against Atlanta. Disrespectful. I know they're on a 3-game skid, and Minnesota is on a 5-game winning streak. But Minnesota's defense is near the bottom of the league in passing yards given up per game. They're like ranked 28th. And Kirko, he can sling the rock. So give me Atlanta +6. But just in case, I would move the line to like +7.5. If you have the ability to change the line, I'd take them +6. But I like it a whole lot better at +7.5. And here is my upset alert. I am primed for the Bears to take on the 49ers because the Niners are a 4-point favorite in this game. And it feels like a trap because everyone assumes that the Niners should be a much bigger favorite against a Chicago Bears team that seems to be in shambles. But you know how I told you I got that feeling? Here's the feeling. The Bears are happy to be rid of Eberflus. And I think they come and they play strong for Thomas Brown. And I don't know that he's going to have the impact that is going to be the change maker in this game. I think the players are just going to feel differently about going out there and playing a bit freer without this dark cloud sort of lingering over them with the whole head coaching situation. So I think the Bears have been this close for the last 3 weeks in their games. And I think this week is the week that if they don't get a win, it's going to be pretty close. So give me Chicago +4. And if I were able to move that line, I'd move it up to 6.5. But I don't think if the 49ers win that it'll be much more than 2 field goals that they win by. So give me Chicago +4. All right, that's it for today's show. I appreciate you coming along, listening to our show each week. If you haven't already, there should be a link down wherever you listen to the show. It says send us a text. I'd love to put your message on next week's show. And as always, if you come back next week, which I hope you do, make sure you've got your bags packed because we are headed north. I'm D-Tron. Peace.
Are you still talking about football?
Yeah, Overtown, NFC North. Now let's talk football.